1 in a million. That's how rare this F1 moment was. The closest race finish ever, just 0.011 seconds between first and second place, and a mere 0.61 seconds separating the top 5. So today we're taking a look at the rarest moments in F1 history. Starting with one of the craziest final laps in F1 history, the 1982 Monaco Grand Prix was absolute chaos. With only 3 laps to go, Alain Prost was leading and looked set to take an easy win, then he crashed.
And Brazil, and there goes Prost off, as did Inoue. My goodness, what about Patrese now?
But no worries, Riccardo Patrese took the lead, except he spun out.
Now has all the pressure off, he only has to cruise around the finish and he's sliding and he's lost it.
Didier Pironi grabbed first place, but just when victory was in his hands, his car straight up ran out of fuel in the tunnel.
For the is that Pironi stationary? It is! My goodness! The third leader in 2 laps.
Meanwhile, Andre de Cesaris was so close to winning that he could see the checkered flag, but his car died before he even reached it.
And that is de Cesaris' car.
Derek Daly was next in line, but he was basically holding his car together with duct tape at that point. His rear wing was gone and his gearbox failed.
This is unbelievable.
Well, we've got this ridiculous situation. We're all sitting by the start-finish line waiting for a winner to come past and we don't seem to be getting one.
And then out of nowhere, Patrese, who had already spun out, somehow restarted his car and crossed the finish line first.
To win his first Grand Prix, he takes the checkered flag and wins.
It was a race where nobody wanted to win, but it ended up being one of the most exciting and unpredictable racing endings ever. But Monza 1971 was the fastest, wildest and most chaotic wheel-to-wheel battle in Formula 1 history. This was a 300km/h game of high-speed chess, played by absolute lunatics in cars that had the structural integrity of an aluminum soda can. And when the checkered flag dropped, the difference between glory and heartbreak was just 0.01 seconds. Yeah, 1/100th of a second. If you blinked, you missed it. The 1971 Italian Grand Prix was held at Monza, the temple of speed, where downforce was a myth and top speed was king. And back then, it was pure unfiltered chaos. Just 5 kilometers of flat-out madness where drivers had zero choice but to send it. And send it they did. With 25 official lead changes among 8 different drivers, the race was a high-speed fistfight. Slipstreaming was the name of the game. If you could keep your foot buried on the throttle and time your move perfectly, you had a shot at victory. If not, well, you were just another blur in the rearview mirror. Let's talk about Peter Gethin. The guy started P11 on the grid, which is usually where people finish their Sunday drives, not win a Grand Prix. But Gethin wasn't here to sightsee. The BRM driver pulled off an unreal final lap move, diving past Ronnie Peterson, Francois Sever, Mike Hailwood and Howden Ganley to steal the win at the very last possible second. 0.01 seconds. That's how close Peterson was to the win. That's less time than it takes for an F1 car to shift gears. If this was modern day F1, it would have taken 10 hours of FIA investigation, 37 deleted laps and a 5-second penalty for track limits to figure out who won. But back in 1971, you just had to take the L and move on. This was the closest finish ever and the fastest F1 race of all time, with an average speed of 242.615 kilometers per hour or 150.7 miles per hour. And get this speed record stood for 32 years until Michael Schumacher and the Ferrari F2003 GA finally broke it in, you guessed it, Monza 2003. But even then, Schumi didn't have 5 drivers separated by just 0.61 seconds. And Formula 1 debuts don't get crazier than Marcus Winkelhock's first and only race. Dude went from dead last to leading by 30 plus seconds in less than 2 laps. You couldn't script this. It's Nürburgring 2007. Spiker, a team that barely had the budget for gas money, throws Marcus Winkelhock into their car as a mid-season replacement. But Mother Nature had different plans.
The European Grand Prix is go. Great getaway for Raikkonen. Alonso comes across to cover Massa. They're side by side. So now Massa comes back at him again. He's in second place. race. Alonso third, and the two BMWs collide with each other.
The race starts dry, everyone's on slicks, and Winkelhock, he immediately dives into the pits for wet tyres. Everyone else stays out. Huge mistake. Because out of nowhere, the sky absolutely unloads like a Mario Kart thundercloud. Now, F1 cars on slicks in the rain, that's just hydroplaning at 300 km per hour. By lap 2, turn 1, absolute chaos. 6 cars all go off the track in the exact same spot. Kimi Räikkönen barely holds on. Lewis Hamilton ends up in a gravel trap but somehow yeets himself back on track. Meanwhile, Winkelhock was chilling. He's out here in full aqua mode, carving through the storm like Moses parting the Red Sea.
Well, it's chaos in the early stage of this race. I wonder if that was Winkelhock. Yes, it is. And he's leading the race. He was the man who started from the pit lane.
And before anyone can process what's happening, the Spiker is in first. Not just first, 30 plus seconds ahead. To put this in perspective, F1 races are usually decided by tenths of a second. This man built a pit stop sized gap in less than 2 laps. For one brief glorious moment, Marcus Winkelhock was leading a Formula 1 Grand Prix in a Spiker. Let that sink in. Of course, the universe wasn't about to let this fairy tale continue. The rain got so bad the race was red flagged. When they restarted, track conditions improved and reality set in. The faster cars caught up and Winkelhock's underdog dream ended in a DNF. But Sergio Perez went from dead last to first place in one of the wildest comebacks in Formula 1 history. This was a mic drop. Sakir Grand Prix 2020. The stage was Bahrain's outer circuit, basically an F1 roller coaster, perfect for a race no one would ever forget. Lap 1, disaster. Perez is chilling, thinking it's just another day in the office. When Charles Leclerc clips his car, Max Verstappen goes off too, both are out. But Perez, he's still rolling, just with a car that's been through the wars. He limps into the pits, rejoins the race in dead last. At this point, 99.9% of people thought his day was done, but not Checo.
Sergio Perez leads the Sakir Grand Prix from Esteban Ocon. They're having a terrific race tonight.
Dude gets back on track like it's his villain origin story, and from that moment, he goes to work. One by one, he starts overtaking everyone, like it's a real-life Need for Speed game. And then, Mercedes decides to self-destruct. Their pit crew, usually a well-oiled machine, completely messes up, they throw on the wrong tyres, chaos erupts in the garage, and in the blink of an eye, Checo is leading the race. Laps tick down, the gap widens, and nobody is catching him.
Comes home to win the Sakir Grand Prix, Sergio Perez. Wow, what a race for him and for Racing Point.
And after 190 races, 10 years of grinding and more setbacks than a Netflix drama, Sergio Perez crosses the line first, the first Mexican to win an F1 race since 1970. However, the shortest Formula 1 race ever, at that time, was so insane they had to stop it. November the 3rd, 1991, Adelaide, Australia. The weather forecast was an absolute disaster, and somehow FIA looked at this and went, yeah, let's race. So they did. The second the lights went out, it was like watching 22 guys try to drive on an ice ring. Cars slipping, sliding, spinning. It was a demolition derby with F1 cars. And by lap 6, chaos had already taken over. Nigel Mansell was lining up a move on Ayrton Senna, but the track was a minefield of wreckage. Nicola Larini and Jean Alesi had already turned the circuit into a scrapyard. By lap 10, the carnage continued. Pierluigi Martini's Minardi aquaplaned straight into the wall, then rebounded across the track like a skipping stone completely out of control. By lap 14, it was game over. Mauricio Gugelmin went for an overtake, but his car had other plans. It snapped, lost control, and slammed into Stefano Modina's Tyrrell. Debris scattered everywhere, and 2 track marshals were caught in the chaos. That was it. FIA had seen enough. They threw the red flag and the race stopped. And just like that, the shortest F1 race ever at the time, 52.92 kilometers, that's shorter than some people's morning commutes. But Belgium 2021 was even the shortest F1 race ever. The rain at Spa-Francorchamps was biblical. Drivers sat in their cockpits for over 3 hours waiting for a race that might never happen.
Well, there are many things this afternoon that we have never seen before.
And when it finally did, 2 laps behind the safety car at crawling speed. It was just a slow parade through a downpour before the red flag waved, calling it off for good.
Race control has now decided it is time to go back to the pit lane again because conditions haven't improved.
But since those 2 laps technically counted, Max Verstappen won, George Russell took his first ever F1 podium without making a single pass, and Lewis Hamilton 3rd place for doing absolutely nothing. To make it even more ridiculous, fans got no refunds. They waited all day in the rain for a race that lasted just 6.88 kilometers. But putting out their own burning car? That's next level. In Singapore 2010, final lap, Heikki Kovalainen's Lotus collides with Sebastian Buemi's Toro Rosso. The impact wrecks his rear wing, but that's just the beginning. Fuel starts leaking, and then flames. Bright orange fire erupts on the back of his car. Most drivers would have gunned it to the pits, let their crew handle the mess, but Heikki had other plans. Instead of risking an inferno in the pit lane, he pulls over on the main straight. Then without hesitation, he jumps out of the cockpit, runs over to a marshal and grabs a fire extinguisher himself. This was the 1 in a million F1 moment of history, and getting hit by the medical car while trying to put out your own engine fire is something only Sakir Inoue could pull off.
Out of the race goes Sakir Inoue, the Japanese driver in the Arrows.
Hungary 1995, Inoue's footwork Arrows breaks down mid-race, smoke pouring from the engine. Like any good teammate, he hops out, ready to help the marshals extinguish the flames. But just as he's doing his best firefighter impression, the circuit's medical car comes flying in and runs him over.
You can see it's got an engine problem, and up there, oh goodness gracious me, now that's absolutely appalling.
The impact launches him onto the hood before he crashes back to the ground. Marshals rush over, expecting the worst, but somehow Inoue walks it off like he just tripped over a curb. But in Monaco 1996, you didn't even need to make a mistake. The race just eliminated everybody for you. It started with rain turning the track into an ice ring. Pole sitter Michael Schumacher out on lap 1. Damon Hill took the lead, but on lap 40, his engine straight up exploded. Jean Alesi stepped up next, only for his car to say nah and give out on lap 60. That left Olivier Panis, a guy who never won an F1 race in his life, suddenly in the lead. And when he pitted for dry tyres at the perfect moment, that was checkmate.
Exits the Rascas to win the 1996 Monaco Grand Prix, an incredible result.
The race didn't even make it to the full 78 laps. With only 3 cars left running, time ran out and the officials waved the checkered flag. Panis had just pulled off one of the biggest upsets in F1 history. Alright, imagine this. You crash into your own teammate, get a drive-through penalty, make 5 pit stops and somehow still win the race. Sounds ridiculous, right? But Jenson Button did exactly that at the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix. The race started under heavy rain and by lap 7, Button had already crashed into Lewis Hamilton, forcing his first pit stop. Then came a red flag, a drive-through penalty and another collision with Fernando Alonso, leaving Button in dead last, P21, after his 5th pit stop. Game over? Not for Button. He went on a tear, climbing through the field like a man possessed. By lap 68 he was second, and on the final lap Sebastian Vettel cracked under pressure, sliding wide. Button took the lead and won the race.
Vettel's got Wade.
Yeah,
he's got Wade.
It turned in too late. He got the tyres. Button leads the Grand Prix.
From last to first, 5 pit stops and absolute chaos, this was one of the greatest comebacks in F1 history.
One of the finest races of his life and the best Grand Prix of his spectacular career.
Alright, winning an F1 race is already tough, but winning it on 3 wheels, that's straight up legendary.
Yeah, left front puncture there, yeah, left more than a puncture.
At Silverstone 2020, Lewis Hamilton was cruising to victory when, on the final lap, his front left tyre exploded. Now, most drivers would have been toast, but Hamilton, dude, kept pushing.
And that is Lewis Hamilton, and Hamilton is winning the Grand Prix, but look at the state of that Mercedes car.
He had to drag his wounded Mercedes 3.8 kilometers to the finish line, taking corners at half speed, while Max Verstappen was closing in fast. With just one fully working tyre, Hamilton somehow held on, crossing the line only 5 seconds ahead, securing his 7th British Grand Prix win in the most ridiculous way possible.
And a record 7th British Grand Prix victory for the most wins at home. It's Lewis Hamilton.
Now listen, if you made it this far, you obviously love wild F1 moments. So do yourself a favour, hit that follow button before you end up stranded like Hamilton's front left tyre.